Welcome to the Kids Biz Podcast, your go-to source for unlocking the secrets to success in orthodontics and pediatric dentistry. Each episode, we bring you expert guests who share innovative strategies and insider tips to help your practice thrive. Whether you're looking to enhance patient care, boost your marketing, or stay ahead of industry trends, we've got you covered. Join us on this exciting journey to elevate your practice and make a lasting impact in the lives of your young patients. Let's dive in.
Davin, hi.
Hey, Dr. Ashley. Here we are, the sixth podcast.
Yeah, we're on our way. I'm having so much fun. I'm so glad that we decided to do this. And I have my COO on today, and I kind of put it on her yesterday. So thank you so much, Melinda, for joining us last minute. And then we have another special guest, Jordan. I came across him just like in the ortho community, just with online Facebook groups. And so, that just goes to show you just the value of like social media and connecting people, and why you should be joining our Facebook group as well, the Kids Biz, for more connections and people that have similar interests. So Jordan, I always knew you as an orthodontist, and then more recently, you're doing the dual pedo ortho. And so I'd love to kind of hear like your journey towards being an orthodontist, and then what your relationship looks like with introducing pediatrics into your business model.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And in the preamble before the show, I was just giving Ashley kudos because, I got introduced to her from another podcast, Dr. Glenn Krieger's Orthopreneurs podcast. And so she's responsible for us upping our game with our video, social media. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to you and Davin for putting this podcast on, because I was also saying that in this new world where with pediatric ownership, it seems like orthodontists have gotten really good at building these social groups, these networks, and I haven't found anything for the pedo side, especially kind of the pedo ortho partnership. So I really think this podcast will be very valuable to a lot. It would have been valuable to me, and still will be valuable to me. So I'm sure there's a lot of people looking for this content.
Hoping to fill the void for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
So my journey, I don't know how far back to go, but I come from a dental family. So nobody in pediatrics, but my grandpa was an orthodontist, missionary dentist in Thailand. My dad was a general dentist with a focus on cosmetics and full mouth interdisciplinary. So I actually started my scratch practice out of one operatory in his office. So I do understand, why I say that, I do understand a little bit of how the dental world works. Going along, the interdisciplinary, the study clubs that I would do with him kind of brought me along this journey to learn about Airway. I originally wanted to add a mandibular advancement appliance partition to my ortho practice. But after a long journey, it was actually okay, I realized I can have the most impact on kids. So that's the pediatric side really came about from interdisciplinary, even though interdisciplinary is usually for adult patients. And then just as it was on my radar that I thought, hey, I should be treating more kids. I can have the most impact in this arena, doing orthodontics on kids. And of course we do adults too. We do airway focused stuff, whether it's MARPs or surgical cases as well. But I think post-COVID, there's a practice in Napa that came up for sale. Unfortunately, the pediatric dentist had passed away during the COVID times, and the building had sat there for a while because it was during COVID, and there was not a lot of action happening. In Napa, probably like a lot of places in California, it's difficult to find a commercial space. So I'd been looking for 5 years in Napa to find a building. But when that first opportunity came out, I was also tied up with another building I just purchased in my other location. So I didn't have the appetite for it, but they had kept it going with some local locum tenens, some pediatric dentists that helped keep the practice going. And then after a year, basically they were kind of forced to do something, and they came back to me and so essentially, I was looking at it as a building deal to help house a bigger spot for my orthodontic practice. But the bank actually wanted to do the deal, wanted me to manage both the pedo and the ortho.
So you were forced into this.
Yeah,
it was not voluntary.
It wasn't like this like grand strategic plan that I'm going to add pediatrics to my practice. It was more just like a deal that came that was only going to work one way. So,
well, it sounded like you're winning, so it worked out.
Yeah. Well, now that I've been in it, you just see such synergy between the two practices, and we just moved in. So the remodel happened in phases. The ortho or the pedo was remodeled first and shifted to the one side of the building, and then we just got ortho in there in December. So we're excited to be in a brand new facility. There's some shared space like sterilization and staff lounge, but both practices have their own reception area, their own basically their own spaces. So,
and they're like kind of individually branded, right? Because I remember your pediatric is like howdy and kind of like cowboy vibes, which is really trendy. Yeah. I loved your branding when you showed me. And then your ortho is a different brand. Are you still happy with kind of separating the two, or kind of now that you've been in it for a little bit longer, do you regret not just making it one umbrella of a brand?
I talked to some people. There's so many different models here, and
I know.
I mean, the easiest one would have been to just have hello ortho and hello pediatrics, so the part was like I was already well established business with the brand of hello, so I didn't want to lose that. So we just came with this concept. Let's have like a sister brand that kind of relates or sounds like the one brand, so we can still have that that goodwill that we built on the ortho side still transmit to the other side, But then talking to some other people, I didn't really want to have a spot where patients felt like they were being forced to come to me. If there's a referral from the pediatric side, I think some of the corporate places that have pedo and ortho, or in general, they have trouble with conversion rate. And one of the thoughts is that the patient feels like they're just being funneled to that one practice. And so, so for us, we have very specific verbiage that now that we're next door, it's like, hey, we're not referring you there because they're a sister brand and they're right next door. We're referring you there because Dr. Lamberton is the best, and vice versa. Same way when I refer back to pedo, which is as common, but it's like, hey, I'm referring you there because my daughter goes there, and like this is the best place she should go. And so, the reason why I'm saying that is I think sometimes the separate brands and separate websites just give it a distinct place, and that's why I want to have a distinct reception areas as well.
What is the landscape like in Napa in terms of the referral kind of network? Because I mean, I think of Napa as like a vacation spot, right? So it's obviously not more; it's more than that. But so when you're living there, I mean, are there a lot of referrals? Are you mostly corporate and some, what's that? What's that mix like?
Yeah, there was actually an orthopedic corporate that was looking at buying the practice that I bought. I kind of like also say that I kind of jumped in there and saved the practice from going there.
Right.
Although there's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't want to talk bad about corporate, but like Napa just doesn't do well with corporate. Like anybody who's tried, it's like not. It's just such a small community. It's very word of mouth driven. So. Yeah, I think private practices are still thriving there because it is a small. It's kind of on an island too. It's separated by the
right.
It's a valley, so it's separated by the mountains on either side. So just demographically, for whatever reason, I'm not exactly sure why corporate doesn't do well. So
right. Okay.
Before we get too deep, I want Melinda to introduce herself a little bit because we have now been working together for about a year. I brought her on right before I was about to give birth to my first baby, and super thankful for all that she's done for our practice and given me my time back home. I only work 2 clinical days and then just do admin stuff during nap time. So I'm very fortunate to have that time back with my family because of Melinda. So Melinda, why don't you just give us a quick little intro, and then we'll get more to the nuts and potatoes of like, what are people charging in 2025? Because I know that a lot of people are interested on that topic as well. But first, Melinda, introduce yourself.
All right. Well, first of all, also thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I got into the dental field probably about 25 years ago, maybe a little more than that. More specifically got into ortho and worked about a decade in ortho as a director of operations before I met Dr. Ashley. So super excited to be on board with Dr. Ashley and Soko, and excited to use what I've learned in building practices before that with her. Definitely new to the pedo side. This has been a whole different can of worms to open up, and I'm learned a lot, but have so much more to learn. So I'm very excited about the opportunities.
Yeah, and for our listeners, we're going to be bringing back Melinda for a whole topic just about COO. What is that position? What stage do you bring someone on to do that? And then I am on the editorial board for Orthotown this year. So I'm going to also be writing an Orthotown article about it. So lots of information to come about COOs, because I know that a lot of you guys are curious about that as well.
Yeah, Melinda, great to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Melinda.
So Jordan, a lot of our listeners are always interested on like, okay, so pedo ortho, we understand the synergy, but how do we make it work? Right. So what does your practice setup look like? Like, so for our office, I'm the sole owner of our practice, and then Dr. Billy is our associate. And then he just makes a percentage of collections. What is your relationship with your pediatric dentist? Because I think that's what a lot of people don't know how to navigate, is how do we set up a marriage here and have a true partnership, or what are people's dynamics looking like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've explored a lot of those models when we were forced to take this over, and the way we have it is very similar to you. It's we have an associate, Dr. Shaver. He's amazing. He's paid on a percentage of collections. We call it adjusted production because the associate's not as responsible for having collections happen. But at the same time, I actually want a pathway to partnership. For him and us, we have a unique relationship because he's a little bit out of the area of Napa, and my wife and I have the skill set of operations and management and marketing. And so, but he also is at a point in his career where he wants to make sure it's an opportunity that has upside. So we're right in the works right now to have a pathway to partnership. But we've worked together for a year. I mean, I thought that was important because you don't want to go too far down that before you understand whether you like each other. And we have a great working relationship. And so, I know there's a lot of stuff we can discuss. I don't have experience on it, but that have worked for other people, like these like true partnerships of both ortho and pedo. The partnership that we're talking about is just on the pedo side. And that's because my ortho practices are already well established. So it's like, I think the ortho pedo together and having partnership of both, it makes a lot more sense if you've got two people, like-minded entrepreneurs who, want to grow together. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah,
no, I agree. Our pediatric dentist, he is very much into the infant space with tongue ties. So he has like a parallel business that complements our pediatric business as well. So, nice. Yeah, it's nice to kind of have that buy-in and have both that entrepreneur. So let's kind of get into it because, I don't want to call it a debate, but I love that you are out of network completely and we're in network. And so I kind of just wanted to talk about pros and cons of both, because I'm very curious. I tell Melinda all the time, I think we should be out of network. Because, in my mind, we're kind of at capacity and our rates are low. So, if we can up our rates and we don't really have, it's not like we are in the advertising where we need to be filling chair space. Chair space is full. And so I would love to hear a little bit about, one, what are you charging right now in 2025? Did you up your fees since last year? And then what was your relationship like, and what made that decision of like, okay, I'm through with insurance, because I kind of feel that way, but haven't made the leap. And how's it been?
Yeah.
Lots of questions. Sorry.
No, it's great. I think that I'll try and break that down into a couple things, but my bias towards being fee for service or like an out of network provider comes from my dad. So he was in the late 80s, early 90s, one of the first dentists that broke free from insurance. And he was more of a cosmetic. That's what like 90s was when the cosmetics kind of increased, and just realized you can't do great work, you can't do great labs with what the insurance companies are dictating, and also the level of customer service. Like he was just like it was volume based, so he was running around, couldn't talk to patients, couldn't give them the customer service and the dedication of time. So obviously, though, orthodontics and pediatrics they're all three distinct models, and I think you just have to look at each of those separately, because I actually am in network with the pediatric side. So
interesting.
So
Okay.
that's also because we're in startup phase with the pediatric side, so
Right.
we're definitely not at capacity there. I think the ortho side in Napa specifically, we were very into tracking our referrals. We still are, but I mean, especially starting out, we're like, where are the patients coming from? And I signed up for everybody that PPOs in Napa, and it wasn't like people were finding us from the website. Like, they weren't going on like Delta and finding us that way. So we weren't even at capacity when we dropped them. We just realized that it wasn't like I look at being in network as marketing, and that marketing partner wasn't really doing what it was supposed to. And then not only that, it's like you have to reduce your fees for people would find us other ways through word of mouth, but we're still reducing our fees for that relationship. So when I see all the stuff online, and I people get like grumpy, and they get like complained about insurance companies, especially the environment with just what happened with the United Healthcare CEO. But like,
Right.
it's definitely time that people should be talking about it. But it's like I feel like you either have to complain about it doesn't get you anywhere. You either lean into it as a model, or you get off of it. Like, those are your two choices. So that's my bias towards it. I don't think there's nothing wrong with leaning into it though, and being a PPO type practice that focuses on volume. But eventually, like, I think you're already finding it. You're running into constraints with either facilities or customer service. You run into something, right?
Our issue is, and Melinda, you could chime in here, is that she did a little bit of it sounds like it's very based on demographics, and you had it nailed. You're like, this is marketing and they're not doing their fair share. So why am I using other marketing and then doing a reduced rate? Whereas it does seem like insurance is a big referral for us. Melinda, can you chime in on like kind of what our stats are for that?
Yeah, so we are contracted with most PPOs, and when I run the statistics for our practice specifically and the demographic of our area, it's just very heavy insurance. So ortho, 75% of our patient base has insurance that's PPO contracted, which is huge, a huge chunk. Only 25% of those patients are actual cash patients that are coming in. When we talk about referrals are coming in for insurance, is our number one provider. Second would be Google. And then third would be other outsourced marketing. So we do have a very heavy referral base that is coming from insurance. On the pedo side, it's a little bit higher. I think we have 80% of our patients are contracted with insurance. So,
and then, yeah, Jordan, you were saying you are contracted on the pediatric side with insurance. For your cash patients, do you guys offer like an in-house plan? I know I forget what the right words are to say. It can't be you can't have an in-house membership maybe. But do you guys offer something that's not just a la carte cash rates?
Yeah, well, the pediatric side, we have a company called Clear that handles our memberships. And with that, so these are for non insurance patients, so it's like I explained, it's like Costco for, so, and we've actually been trying to bring that to the HR departments around Napa, just because I feel like there might be some businesses that are going to drop dental insurance, and that would be a great kind of avenue. So
can you tell us about this, Clear? I honestly have never heard about it.
And you might want to look at some others. I do think that they've been great for us, and we just did it because we had no idea how to do a membership plan. They have the system already ready to go. But there's other pediatric dentists or dentists that are doing this with by themselves. They just manage it through their own software. But what we really liked about it is the patient can pay monthly. So they have a monthly fee, and it gets them, X amount of cleanings and one, fluoride, whatever we set was the program. It kind of reminds me of like Massage Envy, like you pay per month, but you get X amount of massages or whatever, depending on your package. So, but that's been really nice. And then if they're part of
what
that,
is the monthly fee?
I think it's like, it depends on the age. I think the age range,
Okay.
it starts at like $39 a month or something for infants. It's very affordable. And so people love that
some
program.
Quick math.
Yeah. And so that membership, and then for obviously everybody else is pretty much, I would say the majority of our pediatric patients are Delta. We've got some MetLife, other insurances in there. But for ortho, I hear what you're saying, Melinda, that 75% of your patients have insurance coverage. I don't know what our stats are there. I think we're probably a little lower than that, but we maximize pretty much everyone's insurance, even though we're out of network. So I feel like that's the difference between the models, is that patients really just want to make sure they maximize their insurance. Mm-hmm. Like they're paying for it, they're getting through work. They want to make sure that and so obviously we verbally tell them that. There might be some that go somewhere else because we're technically not in network. And I think some of the insurance companies have been pretty aggressive with the letters they're saying to people, but in general, we get that, we maximize their benefits. Sometimes it does pay to them, like especially Delta. Right. The assignment issue is that they'll set it to the patient. So we had to work out like some things like that. It's not that big a deal. But I think actually you asked me about were you asking about ortho? Were you talking about like in-house financing, or were you talking about pedo?
No, so like pedo. So you said, because we have an in-house plan. We call it Soco Savers. And for the longest time, we were like losing money. It was honestly a marketing way to fill our chairs. And then ultimately we're going to raise the fees. And we just did that. So if you don't remember exactly what Clear is charging, but I did the quick math. 12 months of $40 is $480, which honestly is probably accurate. Because Melinda, we're at $475? $450 for the year. So that sounds pretty accurate. And then that just includes, the 2 full visits and then 10% off of treatment. It includes, I think, sealants on all baby teeth. But we have like a whole package, which they're still saving money. But it was just like way undervalued to begin with. It's just of like a way to bring people in. And then just this last year, we increased it from, I think it was $250. We went up to $450. So it was a big jump, but a necessary one.
So Jordan, do you guys want them paying monthly, or do you guys give like a discount if they pay the annual in full?
Well, it's just the same. I feel like because I come from the ortho world, like people love to pay monthly. They don't want to pay yearly. And so for us, that was big. That's why we signed up with Clear. I think their monthly fee is really high though. So we're actually looking for other ways to do this, because I just want a software that makes it easy for the patient to pay monthly. And I think that you're going to get more retention and like less churn by doing that than, oh crap, now I got my yearly dues to pay. Right. That's my own personal philosophy. I don't know any stats to back that up, but
you're probably right. It's a lot easier to digest $40, and people forget about that. It's an automatic thing, just like all these apps I probably pay for that I forget about.
But unlike an app, this one is having your kid's dental health. So it's even better. So if you can afford Netflix on your cell phone, so.
We actually have a lot of patients that purchase that in-house Soco Savers to do their 3-month. So they'll have insurance, and then they'll purchase our in-house plan so that they could do 3-month recalls. So that's another kind of, selling point. But Melinda, go ahead.
I think there are tiers. So like, that's the starting point. And we're like, most of our new patients are like infants right now. So like, but as they get older, it gets, kind of like private school. It's just going to increase a little bit every year they get older. And so I think people understand that, which makes sense. Like one time we recently had a staff member out, and I filled in as a dental assistant to do cleaning. So I got to experience that. And the 2 and 3-year-olds is pretty easy. As long as they have good behavior, it's like, that's a pretty easy procedure. So
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Well, and I, as a business owner, I like kind of struggled with charging patients, when they were like super young, because a lot of times our philosophy is we want them to leave with a good experience. It's about educating the parents and then them just like getting acquainted with the office and our staff and things like that. So we actually do a peekaboo visit, which is under the age of 2. If you have insurance, we bill insurance, of course, but no out of pocket. And then if you don't have insurance, it's just completely complimentary. So that's kind of been another kind of marketing strategy. Because some parents will be like, oh, you're not going to push for the cleaning. And it's like, oh no, we want them to like get a toy and leave and be happy. So when they come back, we could do more, So that's been a kind of an easy segue for parents that are a little bit confused of like, we didn't do a whole lot here today.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have the stats, Melinda, on how many SoCo savers we have? I want to say you did.
It's about 11% of our patient base.
Yeah. So a good way to capture either people that are HMOs that still want to be coming to our office, or just, that 3-month recall. I think those are pretty much the 2 that we're getting those from. So since you are more cash on the ortho side, I would love to hear in 2025, what are you charging for ortho? And we will share too. So you be honest, and we will share as well. But like for ortho phase 1, what are your fees? Because we're both in California, so I feel like they should be a little bit on the comparable side.
Yeah, for phase 1, we're at like $48.80 for phase 1, and
nice.
That's similar to our. I personally like to front load it to where the second phase is about the same, $48.80.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
It's worked really well.
And what was your thought
us.
process on kind of having the 2 phases be equal? Like, what made you go to that?
Well, yeah, like historically, I think orthodontists had really undercharged. Like, hey, let's just get this person in the door, and we're doing a phase 1, put an expander in or a retainer in, and charge $1,000. But first of all, like, I don't even know. Like, we really believe in what we do for phase 1s, whether it's Invisalign expansion or Invisalign first, and we're doing a lot in phase 1s. We're not just doing an expander or a retainer. And so we're really setting the foundation. So we really believe in what we're doing and put the energy and time into it for most phase 1s. And so we do have tiers. Like if it is like a space maintainer or something simple, we're not charging that much.
Right.
But then on top of it, like we've had so many patients come from other places, and they're just kind of mad at the back end when they then get like, hey, I already paid for phase 1, and then it's this like big number on the back end,
Yeah.
And so, I'm in Schulman group, and I talked to some doctors there, and the consensus was that people wanted about, anywhere from 20 to 40% more than like a comprehensive fee, the combined fees. And so that's really where ours is at. It's about 35% more. I tell that to patients, I'm just straight up in the beginning, it's about 35% more to do a 2-phase with us than to do comprehensive, like a full case. But obviously there's so many advantages to doing this. It's a great value. So my thought process was getting rid of the friction, making it easier, the whole process. And so we don't have anybody unhappy about the back end because they know it's going to cost about the same as what they just paid.
And you're going to capture them. You're not going to give them any reason to go anywhere else for that phase 2, if it's going to be a much lower fee than your neighbor or competitor.
And it's not just about fees. It's like a customer's experience, that as long as you have good that way. But I do think that there's a long enough break in between where people are just curious. I think they're just curious to go see what that would be. And so, and sometimes we've even given the phase 2 price to somebody who wasn't in my practice, just because I was like, yeah, actually, I'm looking at what they did. They did a lot for me. So I don't feel right that I'm going to charge you. We do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just depends on what they did, but
Right. We will charge phase 2 pricing, even if a different provider did phase 1, especially as a startup. You're going to be capturing a lot of patients that went to phase 1 elsewhere. So we definitely give them that phase 2 pricing break. For us, we're a very early expansion heavy office. So we do a lot of appliance only phase 1. with expanders. So that's $29.89 cash price. And then I'm more of a bracket 2x4 heavy office if we do add the braces and using Wild Smiles. But that is $39.89. And so, yeah, I'm like, well, but you have aligner fees that you have to pay, which obviously you got to bump up those prices too.
Yeah, I mean, so I think with the discount we get, it's like 700-ish for Invisalign first, and then if the patient continues on and does phase 2, then you also get the same sort of pricing on the phase 2 Invisalign. We're probably about like 70-80% aligners for our phase 1. So and usually it comes down to us for the parent really wants to push them into expanders and brackets. Which is great. We do, but that's the way I historically had always done it. I started out 100% fixed appliances. But for me, in my practice, we charge the same whether it's aligners or fixed. It's
same
very
us
simple.
As well.
Yeah, just makes it simple for the parents. But when you start doing more aligners, it's like you have to make sure that the fee is high enough to account for that. So
absolutely,
so, yeah.
We started doing a lot more debond analysis when Melinda came on board, and I thought I was making a lot of money with my aligners, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if it's the lab fees, I don't know if I'm just like taking too long, my mechanic, I don't know what it is, but definitely with phase 1, I've leaned a lot more into our brackets just from like doing those debond analysis. It was just taking too long and charging me too many refinements.
And I can't tell you how many doctors I've talked to over the years that just have no clue about what those lab fees do to their margins, right? So they're like, well, and so like in your case, I think it's great that you charge a flat fee that's high enough to cover everything. But some of those practices that charge $500 more, $1,000 more for aligners,
right, it's not enough.
But still not enough. I mean, not everybody's got a $700 deal. So, like it's still not enough. And then we start talking about profit margins and everything. And then you're like, well, and then you look at how many patients they have coming in. And so then you just kind of start wondering, like, they start second guessing their math or realizing like, hey, we have to do something different. So I think your approach is great. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, and I thought I was genius for a while. It's like, oh, we had this, like, we call it Social 6. And we were doing, it was more than retreats. It was treatment of upper, lower canines. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, yeah, they're lasting a year. We were charging $3,500 flat for Invisalign. And we were doing these debond analysis, and they were just making 0 cents, like zero. I was not making any money. I mean, in some cases, I was like losing money to treat these people. And so, yeah, it's interesting when you do those debond analysis, and it makes you kind of start to treatment plan a little differently sometimes.
Yeah, and I, to your point, Ashley, I think that's where when you're talking about insurance, non-insurance, you really like. So first of all, I was a Invisalign hater coming out of residency. I'd become like. Post-COVID, I've become an Invisalign enthusiast, I guess. But I wouldn't have really gone that route if I had we didn't have the ability to charge accordingly. And so you really want to know the model that you want to practice in first, and then decide. Because,
right,
like, I feel like on all these online discussions, there's some sort of like heroic thing about getting out of network, but this depends on what the model is and where you want to position your price. Because it might be the model that you keep insurance and really lean into that, and you're going to gather more patients that way who like your pricing and get the maximum benefit and find you easier. So, but yeah.
Well, and then Melinda, share with our listeners kind of the strategy that you implemented when you started at our practice, because we are in network, but the way that we have kind of gone around to charge the patient more legally, I think is a creative strategy. So Melinda, you want to talk about that a little bit for our listeners that are in network and they're looking for strategies to kind of still get a little bit higher if you want to do bigger lab fee type treatment.
If you're like most orthodontic and pediatric dental practices, you're probably struggling with oral hygiene compliance, observation conversions, and an increase of shoppers, especially among young patients and their families. In my practice, Wild Smiles makes converting observation and phase 1 patients easy. Young patients and their shopping families value a personalized experience. When I first added Wild Smiles to my practice, they made inventory and reordering easy, and they even led our team through simple instructions on integrating Wild Smiles into our existing systems. So we saw an immediate success. Grow your early orthodontic patient population with Wild Smiles to combat boring traditional braces and expensive phase 1 aligners. Check out wildsmilebraces.com/doctors to choose the customizable Easy Start Kit that's right for your practice. Mention code KIDSBIZ to save 10% off your first order.
Yeah, I actually think it's huge. If you are going to be somebody that is in network, I've told Dr. Ashley, I've told other doctors that I've consulted with, you go to school for a long time, you're performing services, but you're not billing it out appropriately to the insurance company if you're not billing out for the things that you're actually doing. So the way PPO insurance works is you can charge the patient a fee for what the services are that you're actually rendering. And even if the insurance company doesn't cover all of it, for example, they max out their benefit, that then becomes the patient's portion. So what you want to do is bridge the gap from what the insurance company says. So for example, like for us, Delta Dental says for ortho, you're only allowed to charge $4,051. That's not true. That is just to put the braces on. But if we're doing enameloplasty, if we're doing any bite turbos, if we're taking extra sets of x-rays along the way to do repos, things like that, we can actually add those fees in to charge. So just to give you guys an idea, when I first came on to SoCo and I did my analysis of what their fees are and things like that, they were giving Deltas, obviously that's probably everyone's biggest thorn in their side. I feel like they're the most discounted of all the PPO insurances, yet everybody has Delta. I mean, we have huge percentages of our patient load that have Delta. So I'm going to use that as the biggest example. The other ones get even better as far as the reimbursement back. So the previous on a full treatment, Dr. Ashley's practice was giving a $2,300 discount off of their actual fee in order to accommodate that PPO discount. You have to do the contracted rate, so we're giving them $2,300 off of that rate. And so instead of charging $6,400, she's only getting $4,000, right? So right now, with the fees that we have added in, and these are all services that we're actually doing on the patient, so there's no funny game going on there. We've lowered that discount to $958. So she's making an extra $1,400 almost off of every single full case Delta than she was previous. So this is a big way. Same thing with phase 1s. She was doing $850 discount. We've raised that up a little over $400. So now she's only doing a $447 discount off of those, her fee for phase 1. So I think it's a game changer. You start punching in the numbers and you're thinking an extra $400 for this patient, an extra $1,300 for that patient, and you start adding up. It makes a huge difference in your production in the big picture. So
specifically, we're charging for the records, for enameloplasty, for bite turbos, and then is there one more, Melinda?
So you got your study models, facial photos, any PANCEFs, and occlusal adjustments.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And so that we basically add in all of those at the very beginning, and then we tell patients that this is the fee. We're not a la carting and explaining any of that to them. So say that you're the treatment coordinator, Melinda, how would you present that to the patient if we're the patients?
So I would present it and say, okay, the total cost of your treatment is going to be $6,389. But since you're contracted with Delta Dental, we're going to be able to offer you a discount of $958, which brings your total amount to this. We'll take, $300 as your down payment. Your monthly payments will be $190 a month. on the back end of it, then our financial coordinator has certain procedure codes that she knows that's when she sends off. So like, for example, at the final record, she's going to send off another claim to Delta Dental and bill out those codes at the very end. But we're not re-proposing that to the patient at the end of treatment. We kind of included it all at the beginning, knowing very well what our protocols are and how we're going to go through it.
Yeah. So there is strategies. I know that because I kind of had it posted in a Facebook group this over the weekend, kind of questions for people about insurance, out of network, all those sorts of things. And one person did ask a good question that we are currently not doing. I do a lot of class 2 carriers and we do a lot of lower lingual holding arches. And someone had asked, are you billing that out under their dental? And I know that we're currently not doing that strategy, but Melinda, what would your answer be for that person? Is that a good strategy to maybe start implementing, or is that doesn't work?
I'm not sure I understand. So you're saying that, say that one more time so that I can.
So lower lingual holding arch is part of their ortho treatment plan. Why not bill that out of like Dr. Billy on the pediatric side and then get reimbursed for that lower lingual holding arch versus just, writing that off?
So I think it just depends on the business model and what you're doing. In previous experiences that I've had where you're being referred to by pediatric dentists, you don't want to tap into their yearly amount because that's going to make them not happy with you if you're just doing ortho. In a situation like what we're in, I would say, why not? Like, maximize the benefit to the patient by using both benefits. If it's not hurting a referral base or anything like that.
Yeah. So for our listeners that are that dual pedo ortho, maybe that would be a good strategy. So maybe that's something we need to look at too.
Yes.
It's a good question because I just had this discussion with my pediatric dentist, Dr. Schaefer, and he wants to push all of the space maintainers to me because we're just going to scan them and do like 3D printed bands, which I'm fine doing. Just I have to now have my team bill out under that side. So I think that's the fun part is if you have both, you can decide which way you want to do it. I did want to ask you, Melinda, though, about the miscellaneous code, because I'm not experienced in this. We don't have to deal with like, you're very efficient with this, it sounds like, to maximize reimbursement. But like, there was a way that before you could just do a miscellaneous code, the 999 code or whatever that is, and like indirect bonding lab fee could be added in there. But then I did hear from some people that Delta or some of these bigger ones were pushing back against that specific use. So you can maximize the way that the insurance companies wants, but you can't just add in anything miscellaneous
Absolutely
and expect them to pay. Okay.
And insurance companies are getting smarter and smarter about how to save, more and more of their own money. So I would steer away from that code
Right.
and actually use legitimate codes. Are you still giving a discount? Yeah. But, for us, we've been in a building phase. And if you're somebody that is trying to build, being part of the PPOs and getting that referral base is great. You also have to look at, the demographics of your area and how much of your practice. If we cancel Delta right now, we'd be canceling 45% of our patients just for canceling Delta. So we don't want to do that. That would shoot us in the foot. But to be smart, you have to be smart about it on your end also. And as long as you're performing those services, you can bill out for them, include them in your total fee, and get reimbursement either from the insurance company or from the patient.
Dr. Lamberton, on your fee structure, is there anything that you're charging extra for on the ortho side with those fees, or is it's literally everything is included? So
just listening to Melinda too, I think that my brain is, I'm very simple. So I like just simple fees. So that's why with Invisalign, very solid same. And we try and I used to do complexity adjustments. I don't even do that. Obviously things that increase my fee would be if it's a surgical case, we have an add-on. If it's a MARPI, it's an add-on because there's lab costs plus communication. Anything that's
what is your add-on fee? We charge $1,000 extra for those surgical or a MARPI type style case.
I mean, a MARPE for me is because we use the Partners Dental Studio,
Dental labs.
Dental Lab for that. And like the lab fee for me on those is a lot of times about $1,000. So we're charging about, I think $2,000 additional for those and it's mainly because then it's required so much planning from me and the oral surgeon. And so the surgical is that's the same fee for the MARPE or the surgical add-on. So
I think I need to look at my lab fees.
It's for me the lab fees too, but also the time on those cases. Like there's a lot more not clinical doctor time, but doctor time that is needed for those. So, and those cases, like I think people expect as well. Like I think they're getting something. Like I actually just talked before this podcast. I talked to this guy, who's a friend of mine. His name's Alex. He used to do pricing. He's a pricing strategist for Target. Now he works for Treasury Wine Estates. But he was telling me like these procedures that you do that are very unique. You have pricing power in them. Like lingual brace is a good example. I used to do a ton of those. Don't do it very much anymore. But you can set your price to whatever you want to because no one else does it. No one else is crazy enough to do it. And so if you're doing a lot of MARPEs, a lot of surgical cases, I think those are ones where you need to build a profit in to make it worthwhile for you. And then B, the patient understands that and they're getting something very special and unique. So
no, that makes sense. I just started getting into the world of MARPEs, so I'm probably undercharging there. Okay, so it sounds like you're pretty much, when we first started, I was like transparent fees. I had the fees like up on our website. It was simple. I was all about, like I want to be simple and transparent. And then it wasn't until we got into starting the debond analysis, I'm like, okay, some of this stuff is not making sense when they are more complex. So it's funny, I kind of started out more where you're at and then have kind of changed things somewhat, especially with the in-house fees. Go ahead.
Do you still have your like a fee range on your website? Because this is something that's
No, I removed everything because people will literally send you screenshots of your website and then you got to hold it to you. So, no, I've since removed that. I wanted to be that like new age. You're social 6, it's 3,500 no matter what extraneous things. And then I just realized I wasn't making money. So, we've kind of had to switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
Like, there's a reason why people didn't have their fees on their website.
Well, I've heard of people that are wanting to present fees move to like a fee range. So they still have the kind of groups, but then they might say, it's a range of maybe a $750 range or $1,000 range. I don't know. I'm curious.
To your point, actually, because you asked me about phase 1 fees, it's like there are always these exceptions where it's like less,
right.
or maybe, so to quote someone, the full fee, it's like, well, you might even turn them off. So it's
right.
Like if I did transparent on mine, I don't know if it would help me, but for me, it's more the simplicity of it because, you can get really in the weeds with like adding this appliance and adding that, and now we're adding a TAD. So, I think you got to just do the ones that make sense, that the patient would understand why you're charging more. But then, clean it up. Like, how do you charge? Do you charge for severity or do you charge for like appliances? Like, how do you determine what changes your fees?
We're pretty simple. It's phase 1 appliance only or phase 1 with brackets. I should say phase 1 comprehensive, because we will do some first aligners, and that will just be our comprehensive fee. So phase 1 has 2 pricing, $1,000 off or on, just depending on if we're doing more treatment. And then for comprehensive, it's just the phase 2 or comprehensive. We're still doing social 6. We've just increased our fees to be a little bit closer to that comprehensive, which I think, what are we at? Melinda, go over our fees just because I want everyone to hear where we're at.
Phase 1, just an appliance, is going to be $29.89. Comprehensive phase 1, so that could be with Invisalign or with braces and a expander, is going to be $39.89. We do have a phase 1, phase 2 combo. So if they wanted to just do it all up front and then keep making monthly payments, we do have an option for them to do that. That's $9,000. We have our phase 2 is $5,500. Social 6 has at $39.89. That would be a less than 6-month treatment, something very minor. And then our full comprehensive is $63.89.
Yeah, so that's like our ortho fees. And then on our pediatric side, we have the SoCo Saver. And then we're still figuring out what we're doing. We're trying to come up with a tooth pillow program. I don't know if you're familiar with tooth pillow, but like an in-house, a lot of patients in our area are doing tooth pillow, and we're like losing that like myofunctional early airway, that sort of patient to them, where Dr. Billy is very well versed in that world, is a big proponent of myobrace, things like that. So we charge. I've just talked to him last week about how right now it's a 12-month program and it's $998, but he wants to up the fees a little bit and make it an 18-month program. So that's another kind of like internal program that we do on the pediatric side to increase production as well.
I'm actually familiar with that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. We just introduced, we had Tyler Hanks. He's with Happy Tooth. He was on a podcast a little while ago, and he's like really gone down that road of like the airway. He's like, primarily a pediatric dentist. And then his wife does the airway stuff, and they're like really going down the road of kind of having a tooth pillow style program within their office as well. So I definitely know that it's up and coming for a pediatric trend to kind of get some case fees type stuff out of that. But do you guys do anything like that, Jordan?
My sister actually is a hygienist and studied myofunctional therapy. So I got educated while she was getting educated with this. And so I've even tested out MyoBrace and the Healthy Start systems in my own practice. I don't think I did it as much as some of these other practitioners, but I just found the compliance so low on it. But like the earliest patient I've actually done expansion on is my niece, who's my sister is a myofunctional therapist. And she was diagnosed with mild sleep apnea, tongue tie. So we actually did Crozat expansion on her at the age of 3. So, so I like the custom stuff, for me, it's like the semi-custom MyoBrace. I think it works. To me, it's like myofunctional therapy in a box. And, it does help with the muscles, but if you actually want physical expansion, there's nothing like a custom appliance. The question was always for me, like, how do you get a custom appliance in a 3-year-old, without like sedating them or something? So I have some strategies. Like we could talk about all the younger than age 7 expansion that you can do. I'm not doing a ton of that because usually they're referral from a myofunctional therapist, or the parent's just very aware of airway. I'm only doing that for airway issues or referrals from like a pediatric ENT. Same. Those kind of procedures. It's not. I just think it's not well known or well thought out. So, but it is really nice to have those tools in your tool belt for sure.
Yeah, and I think that awareness is only going to increase. Like mommy groups are talking about it. You see a lot on Instagram. That's how us millennial moms raise our kids these days. It's what Instagram preaches to us. But Dr. Billy's actually started treating the really young expansion cases. I've not even been doing those. He's been the ones that, because he's mostly bringing those in from his parallel business. So we've kind of had to navigate which expansion cases are yours, which expansion cases are mine. But that just kind of goes to show you how parallel pedo and ortho are. But so Jordan, what do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask, so Jordan, are you looking at that area as a way to add growth in your practice, or is it just kind of like you're treating the ones that come to you?
Yeah, I mean, so far I've not been, you can see some stuff on our website about that we're airway aware, but I'm not like leaning into the marketing that I'm some airway guru. We are getting it by word of mouth though. We, like, as Ashley said, the moms groups and homeschool networks and stuff like that. Like, people are coming to us. We do a lot of stuff with the Breathe Institute. Dr. Zaghi comes up to Walnut Creek and stuff. And so we're in like some networks and study clubs with that group. Just really word of mouth. I haven't really I'm interested in it. I love it. And I think it's a huge impact. I'm so busy just doing all ages of orthodontics that I haven't really leaned into that as a segment. But I do think, to Ashley's point, like, parents really, really get it. Obviously it's controversial in orthodontics, and there's like,
Right.
I still think there's people doing this that are very scientific and trying to be research back, which is like the side I'm on, and I'm going slowly into it, but the impact that I've already seen in helping kids breathe better, helping adults breathe better with MARPIs and stuff like that, there's no way I could go back and unsee what I've already seen with my own patients. So,
well, leading into that, just to kind of close and wrap this up, because I think this has been a great conversation, but what do you think will be the 2025 trends to kind of increase your production, either in your dual practice or pedo or ortho? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think I'm a novice when it comes to pedo. We're still learning the business model. Like my thought to increase production was just increase new patients. Like that's all I can think of. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on increasing production for pedo. But for ortho, I do have some specific things that I think may help. Obviously, we talked about raising your case fee. That's one way. Melinda had a really great thought about being more efficient with insurance. Is also raises your case fee. I think retainer guarantee program, there's tons of talk about that. We've been doing that for a while. I think 2020 when we started, we just revamped ours though. So I can kind of talk about how we do that a little bit.
I'd love to hear, because we're doing one similar, so we can see what's working best.
I feel like every orthodontist is doing these totally different. So it's kind of fun to see how everybody's doing it. But but we just changed ours to where it's $850 if they sign up during treatment, because it's kind of like insurance. So you can't sign up afterwards, or it's $999 if you're outside of active treatment. And there's no code. If you purchase it, you automatically get 2 sets upper and lower. And then for 10 years, you can get additional 2 sets upper and lowers at no cost. There's no copay. And our retainer fees are $340 for one retainer. So it's like, I tell patients, like, it's no brainer to do it. It's going to pay for itself instantaneously. And we've actually had patients come to us specifically because we had that program, and they just didn't want to worry about their teenage boy losing retainers. So I think that's a really great way I'm pretty sure you can add that on top of whatever you're doing. And that's separate than insurance stuff. So it's a really great way to get your case fees up. And I know Invisalign has their subscription program. I don't really do that because I feel like it's competing, but I'm thinking about ways to implement that. But that would be my number one tip for ortho practices trying to increase production.
Yeah, we do something very, very similar. We were not heavily selling it in the consult room, in the treatment coordinating room. And we were getting very, moderate buy-in, to say the least. And then when Melinda came in, she was very much like, no, when they sign up for treatment, you add it in, and then they could ask for it to be removed. And so, Melinda, what are our stats on, since we kind of changed the way that we were selling it in the treatment coordinating room, what was our acceptance after doing it that way?
So we've increased the number of retainer for life that we've sold in the consult room by 4 times the amount, just by adding it in at the consultation time. It's huge. It is disclosed to the patient. This includes a retainer for life program. And if the patient is in that situation where you're needing to negotiate the fee a little bit, we can say, well, we can take this retainer for life out. It'll lower your payment to this amount. Most of the time when it's included in there, they want to get it. I mean, especially once they hear about the program, every mom wants this. But by including it in at the very beginning and not doing it in as an add-on later on, it dramatically... It
works it into their monthly fees too, which is more cost effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just upped all of our fees by $800 a patient. So our program is $799, which I've never increased those, but maybe it's even time to raise those. And our retainers are $195 top and bottom. Again, haven't raised those since we've opened 3.5 years ago. And then
in our program, it is a $15 copay, top and bottom. You have to bring your models. So we give them their 3D printed models. They're in charge of those. If they lose them, or if they let their teeth relapse enough to where their models do not reflect their current teeth, it's a $50 reprinting charge per model. So that's kind of our program.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think that raising your actual retainer fees helps drive people into the program, because they're like, oh yeah, I'll just do the retainers then if it's too low. So
people balk at the $195, so that's the only reason why I haven't even raised them from there, because they're like, oh my, $400 for this clear plastic. Yeah. So going back to
Jordan, what you said earlier about just like getting more new patients is kind of like one way to obviously get raise your production. Kind of on that point, one thing that we've seen kind of from the supplier side is more and more practices, especially in this dual practice modality, taking a look at the appliance mix that they're offering, and looking at ways to attract the younger patients and their shopping parents through appliance and experience, which I don't think that really necessarily applies to your practices, because you guys are already doing that. But for a lot of our listeners that are out there and thinking about, am I an orthodontist that's looking to partner with a pediatric dentist in some way, or maybe a pediatric dentist looking to bring on an orthodontist or do something like that? Like, one easy thing is to look at your appliance mix, and that can basically cost you no more money. And then to just look at ways to attract more of those kind of low-hanging fruit kids, because we've seen practices that are like, well, I don't treat 100% of the kids in my area, so if I just do something a little different than the other practices in my area, that makes it super easy to bring in more new kids through experience. So that's kind of one way from the supplier side that we've been seeing practices kind of tack on to ways to increase production in 2025.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think like whether it's aligners or wild smiles, like you want to fish from as many pools as possible. And there's people that talk in circles, like in social groups. I mean, like, hey, like with these wild smiles braces, like Johnny got these, and it stimulates that group of people who want more of that, you know? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I think this was a great conversation. Thank you, Jordan, for being so transparent. I know Davin and I were kind of talking ahead of time, and it's just so funny. People are so they want to keep their secrets close. They don't really want to share what they're charging, what programs they have. I'm very much an open book. I don't see my next door neighbor as, sure, they're a competitor, but I think there's if you're business savvy enough, we're all going to succeed. So I love sharing my information, and I just thank you that you are one of those two that was very open today. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, a rising tide floats all ships. So I think that we should all be sharing our knowledge, and it's only going to make orthopedo, the profession, better. So thank you guys for doing these podcasts to elevate everybody. So
well, thanks for being a guest, Melinda. Thanks for being a guest. We appreciate it. If you like what you heard on today's episode, check back for a follow-up conversation with Dr. Carter in our March episode drop. We will dive deeper into the details of the co-location workflow and take out specific action points as we walk you through the process. Whether you are currently co-located or thinking through adding orthodontics or pediatric dentistry to your current practice, you won't want to miss the valuable insight. New episodes currently drop on the second Tuesday of each month. Are you looking to grow practice revenue, improve patient retention, and enhance overall practice success in 2025? Join our faculty of leading practitioners, all experts in the crossover of orthodontics and pediatric dentistry, at one of 3 hands-on courses designed to equip orthodontist and pediatric dentist with essential knowledge and tools to establish and implement a successful Phase 1 bracket program to keep more patients in-house and grow your practice. Participants will be given a comprehensive roadmap to build a robust early treatment program and will be able to apply these strategies to their practice immediately. Whether you're looking to implement an early orthodontic treatment program for the first time or enhance your current offerings, this course provides the tools and knowledge to help you grow your practice and provide top quality care for younger patients. For more information on locations and dates, and to sign up, visit specialtyappliances.com/course/registration. Registration is open, and these in-office courses have limited space that will fill fast. So more information can be found again at specialtyappliances.com/course/registration.
Thank you for listening to the Kids Biz podcast. We hope you gained valuable insights to elevate your practice. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to leave us a review. It really helps us grow. Want to dive deeper into our community? Join the Kids Biz Facebook group for discussions, resources, and networking with fellow professionals. Until next time, keep striving for success in your ortho and pediatric practice.